In the US, we tend to think of a sustainable city as either some sort of far-off shining city of the future, or a hippie commune where you have to share bathwater. There is no in-between. But what if I told you there are already high-tech, well-developed districts making huge strides in sustainable living at a citywide scale? This is Freiburg, a beautiful Renaissance-era city nestled in the picturesque Black Forest of Germany that has lived through 900 years, 2 world wars, and an ever-changing global economic system. But Freiburg hasn't just survived, it's slowly become a leader and innovator in the global green movement.
Freiburg is considered one of the most successful cities in the world as far as sustainability indicators.
This is Andrea. He's the co-founder of Iferia, an international promoter of local green projects, including transportation initiatives and eco-tours here in Freiburg.
25,000 people per year comes to Freiburg just to study this aspect.
There are many green city projects that Freiburg is known for, such as solar and renewable energy. Known as a solar city, Freiburg invests heavily in solar research, with many homes and buildings generating surplus energy. The most famous of these being their new town hall, which is the world's first public building built to net surplus energy standard. Is only 40% the demand of a comparable modern office building. The thermal energy required for the building is generated via suction and injection wells and thermal solar panels in combination with heat pumps, while electric energy is generated by 2,337 photovoltaic panels on the roof and facade. There's enough energy to power it and feed energy back to the city grid. They're also known for their eco-districts. Vauban is considered Europe's first eco-district. The neighborhoods are designed as zero-emission areas, with housing that uses 10 times less energy for heating, car-free streets, and high-density living within green spaces. I'm not kidding when I say this is the most surreal city district I've ever seen. It felt like I walked into some land in between time. It somehow felt like an Amish town stuck in the past, but also the most futuristic city imaginable. I can't explain it. It's like if Gilligan's Island was in Germany and had trams and hotels. And then, of course, what is the most obvious that even a tourist like me would notice: green transportation. The city has extensive tram lines, including grass-covered tracks to reduce noise and pollution. And with over 400 kilometers of bike paths, there are more bikes than cars. Green transportation is one of Iferia's main goals in new sustainability projects.
We advise Italian municipalities for sustainable mobility and traffic. We developed the slogan two-third operation, because currently in Italy, in the cities, you have that 2/3 of the trips are done by cars, whereas 1/3 is done by sustainable means: walking, bicycle, and public transport. And so the goal of a city should be exactly to invert completely, which is in fact what happens currently in quite a lot of German, Dutch, Danish cities.
In most American cities, it's a lot farther off than 2/3 car. The ratio is roughly 9-to-1, and driving accounts for 90% of time traveled. So how do you get here? Well, Freiburg is built on green policies, like how new residential developments are strictly planned around public transportation, with a core policy that new housing clusters must be within walking distance of a tram line. But what if your city doesn't have trams?
For sure, also it's a question of infrastructures. You cannot convince people to take bicycle lanes, public transport, if public transport is not existing, or stops at 8 o'clock in the evening, or some parts of the city are not connected. But in very many cases, you can try to convince people to use bicycles if you just change the routes. In most Northern European cities now, the overall speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour. Using a bicycle in a city whose speed limit for cars is 20 miles per hour is much more safe. Some of the projects that we do in Italy is about the school mobility. If you see that there are more and more children going to school by walking or by bike, then you are more invited, there are quite a lot of snowball effect.
It's clearly snowballed here in Freiburg. They bike like crazy here. Friends were biking together, couples, families with multiple kids in this front carriage thing I've never seen before that was everywhere. And I think the most tellingly, workers, businessmen in nice coats on their way to and from work. You could tell this whole city was built for biking. And it really feels safe here, especially in Vauban, where there are no car streets and parks at every corner. I couldn't stop thinking about how amazing this place would be to grow up in and actually be able to ride all over the city, pick up groceries, or just explore. Being kid-friendly is a huge draw of the area. It feels like these shared public spaces really build a unified community. I mean, just take a look at how they gather for the local soccer games.
I went to the stadium last Thursday. We won 2-0, by the way. You really feel happy because you can park your bike very close to the stadium. And then in the end, I could stay there having a second beer. The main sponsor of our football team, Jobrad, they count the number of bicycles going to the stadium. Every match, they devolve €1 per bike to a charity or an association present in Freiburg.
There's real momentum behind the movement here. But what actually is the Green City movement and how did it start?
50 years ago, the German federal government decided to build a nuclear power plant at the border with France, about 30 kilometers from Freiburg. They, of course, used always to say that they are absolutely safe, there is no problem, there are no problem at all. But nevertheless, most of them, they are built on borders. So what happened was that a protest of people started against this project by the farmers of the village. Sometimes later, also the intellectual and liberal and modern city of Freiburg is a small city but still a university city, so started and joined the protests. After a couple of years, at the beginning of the 80s, the federal government said, okay, people, if you don't want our fantastic power plant, just forget it. They had won and decided to move a step forward and to move from the protest to the proposals, to show the government that we can do better than them. And so the anti-nuclear movement became a sort of regeneration energy movement. Solar energy, wind energy, and of course a saving energy, starting to think about the environment in a different way.
A green movement won't survive on ideals alone, though. It needs to be fertilized with the necessary nutrients of living in the modern capital-run world. Profits.
In the 90s, the private sectors discovered that the city like Freiburg was a rather good place to sell their expertise, from solar panel to green infrastructures, to green finance, green pedagogy, and the other aspects that are absolutely consistent to a market-oriented society. Very many cases, if we think that, for example, in Freiburg, Tarlac Cargo invented a new way for a cargo bike. They sold about 500 pieces to Amazon, which uses this in Manhattan. Intelligent architects started to develop passive houses.
Passive housing is a process that uses advanced construction such as continuous insulation, heat recovery ventilation, airtight construction, high-performance windows, and eliminating thermal bridges to create ultra-energy efficient homes. With Freiburg's municipal codes mandating net positive renewable energy for all new city-owned buildings, it's being proven that passive housing can work on a large scale, including the world's first passive energy high-rise.
This saves quite a lot of energy. And of course, by saving energy, this creates much less CO2 emissions and of course also much less money emission for the people living there.
This is all amazing, but how does the average citizen fit into this movement? And how does it work in everyday life?
I don't know in fact how many people are conscious about the fact that Freiburg is considered a green city. If we just consider the people living in Freiburg and working in Freiburg, I think that number of trips by car it's less than 1/4. I don't think that the 80% moving by foot, by bike, and by public transport are committed environmentalists, activists. I think that the most of them are just people that just found just more convenient not to use the car to move. And this situation has been realized by the city policies. But if this happened in Freiburg, in Northern Europe, I mean, there is nothing preventing this happening also in other places. Mayors or deputy mayors tell us, hey, it would be nice, but here we don't have the German culture. Oh, I would avoid to overestimate the importance of this so-called local culture. Most families have at least 2 cars. A car costs about 300 or 400 euro per month. The car stays in a place, doesn't move for, according to studies, for about 92% of the time. Can we think of something more inefficient? If you succeed in convincing people to create cities that allow families to own only 1 car instead of 2 cars, you can spend an enormous amount of money to other things. Buy books, to go to discos, to go to holidays, to eat better. I mean, and this is something which is again something that in a market-oriented society should be rather sexy. I'm not saving the world. Maybe I save the world, but especially I save my money. I save my wallet.
This all sounds great, but what's the real likelihood of adoption worldwide? And what pitfalls are here in the US with our spread out cities, car-focused city planning, and the deep-rooted American idealism of owning your own shit? I mean, just the idea of having a rideshare rather than owning a car sounds like something our politicians would laugh off a debate stage and give your communist-fearing grandparents a heart attack. We saw the figure of 90% driving for daily trips in the US, but 52% of all trips are under 3 miles. This is a huge chunk of our drive time that is primed for a change. There's actually a new fad that has been popping up in schools across the US. Bike buses, making a community event out of getting to school. It might not be city planning or policy, but maybe we are on the way to change. Still, our situation in the US seems so dissimilar to Europe. Most Americans think little about conserving resources or climate change, and what does it really matter? Could it already be too late?
Normally, I am an optimistic person. I'm deeply convinced the world today is better than the world when I was a child, thanks to younger generation that are succeeding to repair the mistakes that my generation did. Environment, climate change, and so on. People will understand. What I'm not sure about, our change, a change of path, a change of attitudes, I fear that it's still too slow because the climate change is too quick. And so I don't know if I am optimist enough in this sense.
I do feel like we're approaching a time of great change. Not just biking and buses and recycling kind of change, but a real revolution. People are seeing the dangers of too much screen time. There seems to be a craving for the natural, the human, that I think will increase just as exponentially as AI and technology increases. It feels like a revolution of people actually discovering that convenience isn't always synonymous with good.
At the very beginning, the environmentalist movements or green movements had a sort of good people movement. So you have to do this in order to save the planet. And I think that in some cases you should try to let people to understand that another way of living, it's better not only for the planet, it's better for you.